Hi there, and welcome to another knitting podcast episode. My name is Luisa, but everybody calls me Lu. And on today's agenda, I have exciting updates on my mom's polo, as well as on my first tea project of the year. And I also have a new cast on because why not? I cast on my first cardigan of 2026, and I'm really excited about it because I think it was back in January that I mentioned I wanted to add a couple to my wardrobe, and it is finally happening. On top of all of that, there's also a small, teeny tiny acquisition that I meant to share last podcast episode, but it didn't happen. So we are talking about it today. But before we start talking about all of that, I just wanted to say a huge thank you to a lovely viewer who commented on I think it was my latest podcast episode. It's the one where I shared all about finishing my porcelain sweater by Granit. I sticked this project, I added a v-neck, and I am absolutely in love with the final look of it. But this viewer, I don't want to say their name in case they're not comfortable with that, they pointed out to me that I had chosen a superwash yarn as the main yarn for this deep red wine color. And sticking plus slippery wool is not a good combination, and it is exactly what I chose, of course. I think in the back of my head, I knew that Filcolana Arveta was a superwash wool, but my brain didn't want to register it, and it never crossed my mind the entire time I was working on this sweater. So thank you so much for bringing that to my attention. Otherwise, I would have destroyed the sweater. I was planning on wearing the sweater the same day that I read that comment, and now I've made plans to try and rescue this somehow with a sewing machine. I don't own a sewing machine, but I think I found a friend who owns one. We are thinking of ways to fix this issue. I think I know what I'm going to do, but well, I will update you on this saga. But let's talk about today's projects, and the first one is going to be my mom's polo. This is a Petra Polo by PetiteKnit, and I am knitting it out of 2 strands of yarn. I am pairing Holst Garn Supersoft in the colorway Sage Blue. I have this giant cone of Supersoft, and I am pairing it with Lace Weight Alpaca. This is Filcolana Alva in the colorway 368 Eucalyptus. So this is my color combo for this project. And I am really loving the fabric these 2 yarns are creating. The pattern calls for 1 strand of fingering weight cashmere yarn, if I'm not mistaken, but I had this Holst Garn Super Soft cone in my stash, and it is fingering weight, but it is such a light fingering weight that in my opinion it knits up as almost lace weight, and paired with another lace weight yarn, got me gauge, which almost never happens. So everything is working according to plan, or so I hope. So let me show you the back before I forget. And since I last showed you guys this project, I have joined in the round, so the yoke is finished. I have both button bands in place and also the collar. The pattern has you do both button bands before joining in the round. So this area here where everything meets looks really neat, and I really like the final look of it. Maybe I should show you up close so you can see all details, but I think it's easier if I do it like this. Otherwise the color would look all out of shape. But I think this way you can see everything. Now let me show you the back. It is unblocked, so I'm expecting things to look a little bit neater and more relaxed once I block this entire thing. The button bands are double knitted, and it's just a regular button band, like the same thing we do for a cardigan, so nothing out of the ordinary when it comes to the button band. But talking about the collar, it is knitted using really small needles so that the collar looks really neat and polished and also really tight, just like we see with store-bought polo shirts. And in fact, I really appreciate that extra attention to detail because this sweater really looks like a store-bought polo, not because of anything special that I'm doing, it's because of all the details the pattern includes. But that also meant the collar was kind of a pain to knit. hand fatigue was definitely a thing. So when I was done with the button band and joining the round, I just decided to stop everything and work on the color while I was still motivated to work on this project. Get it done, get it out of the way. So that's exactly what I did. It looks really neat. Yes, I really like it, but it was also a pain. Maybe if I can show you the wrong side, just so you can get an idea. There are a lot of ends woven in here, but we will talk about that in a minute. I really think the finishing details look really polished, like I said, and the only modification I've made to the color was that I shortened it by, I think, 1 or maybe half a centimeter, just because it was the way my mom wanted it to look. So that's exactly what I did. So I finished the button bands. I still have to think a bit more on the buttons I want or my mom wants for her tee. So no buttons yet. I still have to purchase them. But I joined in the round and worked a fair amount on the body. There's still a lot to go, but I'm really excited to work on stockinette in the round. Really easy and relaxing now that the color is no longer a thing. This project needs a good blocking so that everything relaxes and feels a little bit softer, because this Holst Garn Supersoft is not really that soft until you start washing it and soaking it a few times. Then it becomes a little bit softer and nicer to the touch. But as of now, it's kind of rough on the hands, so I can't work on it for many hours on end. And in fact, that made me question everything, because I was worried it might be too rough next to skin for my mom. So right before I was ready to join in the round, I did a mid project block to see how the fabric would feel after a good soak, and like I said, it relaxed a little bit. It feels much softer. So I went ahead and joined in the round, and I think my mom will enjoy this fabric. If there's one thing that I wasn't expecting, was the amount of ends to weave in. I think by now I've woven in 17 ends because of this construction. This is a satin sleeve construction. Did I show you the back? I think I did. But this is a satin sleeve construction. So just because of that, you have a couple more ends to weave in, because you cut your yarn and then you join here once again when you join front and back, if I'm not mistaken. And I am making a mess out of this yarn, but yeah, we are back on track. But because of the button bands and the collar, there's a lot of breaking the yarn and joining a new one. So by now I am 17 ends in, but I think it's smooth sailing from now on, because it's just a stockinette knitting the round. It is fine. It's not a huge trouble to weave in a few extra ends, but I was not expecting that. At the same time, if you want a really nice looking polo shirt, well, you can't have it both ways, so I'm fine with just weaving in a couple more ends. I was expecting to finish the body for today's episode of the podcast, so of course it didn't happen, but that's life. Knitting this collar took me a long time because of the tight gauge, like I said, so I had to stop a few times while working on it, but now I think everything will be a bit more relaxing. I just have to finish this body and pick up stitches for the sleeves, but I think she's going to love it. So now let's change it up and talk about my first tea project of the season. So this is by Sea Salt Tea by Atelier Castin, and I am knitting it out of a new to me yarn. I think everybody has seen this yarn out there, but it's my first time knitting with it. And it is Knitting for Olive Cotton Merino in the colorway Dusty Blue Whale, a lovely navy blue. This yarn is a fingering weight, but a very light fingering weight, a blend of 70% organic cotton and 30% extra fine merino. And because it is so light, and this pattern calls for a sport weight, which is not what I'm using, I am completely off gauge. So I went up a few sizes in the pattern to get the bust circumference that I wanted, but I think everything is as it's supposed to be. And the fit is actually really nice. Now that I can see that my needle is poking through the fabric, but yeah, everything looks fine now. This yarn is so light, like I said, that the fabric, this StockKnit fabric, feels really breezy and also a little bit open in terms of gauge. I was worried it might be too open for my liking. So at one point, I think you can even see a line here. I decided to stop and do a mid project block to make sure that I would like the final fabric. Even though I've made a swatch before casting on this project, I was still a bit unsure when it came to the fabric, but now that it has been blocked, it really bloomed, the stitches are a bit more even, so I think everything will be just fine. I don't think there will be any problems in terms of see-through fabric or anything like that. But being so off gauge also means that it is a lot of work to see progress happening here, because I have to knit 5 rounds to get 1 teeny tiny centimeter. So that means a lot of hours went into this project. My initial goal was to finish this body for today's episode of the podcast, but it is so much work to make progress on this thing that I am not even close to the hem yet. It will happen eventually. I am hoping to finish this next week, but who knows what might happen between today and next week. But I am hoping that nothing really big happens and I can finish this project. I also worked on the sleeves. In fact, my sleeves are ready for the contrasting edge. I know it doesn't look like it, but the pattern calls for a couple of centimeters of sleeve, and then you just proceed to folding it to the inside for that StockKnit edge. I am going to do the StockKnit edge, but I want to go with the contrasting edge option. And I also wanted to add a few centimeters to the length of the sleeves, just because it's the way I like my sleeves to fit me. Like what I have here with the Lyra Tee that I'm wearing today. I like my sleeves to hit kind of where? A few 3 or 4 fingers above my elbow, so it is what I'm aiming for with my sea salt tee. I still don't have the yarn I want to use for the contrast edge. I am thinking about maybe a turquoise blue or maybe a poppy blue. I can't stop thinking about poppy blues lately, so there's a high chance that I will go with a poppy blue, but I still have to purchase this yarn. I don't have anything in stash that could work with this tee, so I have to think a little bit more on that. So in the meantime, my sleeves are just resting on some try-on tubing until I make up my mind and purchase some yarn. Also, when it comes to the color, I plan on doing the same contrasting edge. And right now, this color looks really white, but even with the color in, it still looks a little bit whiter than a traditional t-shirt, store-bought t-shirt, I mean. And I'm really happy with that because I think I will enjoy a little bit more room around my neck with my tee projects. I don't think I have that in my wardrobe, at least not hand knitted. And I'm really excited to see what I think of the fit once it is done. This yarn really benefits from a good blocking. So right now I can see where I've woven in my ends. There's one right here. Yeah, you can see this line where I've joined a new ball of yarn. So I'm expecting this to block out. If it doesn't, I will be really annoyed. So I'm just hoping it blocks out and I won't think about this anymore. And there's one mistake that I've made when I was getting ready to separate for body and sleeves. At some point, the pattern has you stop increasing for the sleeves and only increase for the body, like front and back. And I completely disregarded that for no reason at all and kept adding stitches to the sleeves. So when I picked up stitches for the first sleeve, I just added a couple of decreases to get back to the right stitch count. And it is kind of noticeable right now because this area has not been blocked. But I'm hoping once I soak this project, it will stretch a little bit here and it will no longer be noticeable. But at the same time, if I can still see it, I don't think it will be an issue because when I wear this, or at least when I tried it on last night, late last night that is, it wasn't an issue at all. So yeah, I'm not really worried about it. It would just be nice if, well, this blocked out. But we'll see. This is my sea salt tee for now, so let's change it up again. Because I want to talk about my new cast on my first cardigan of 2026, and I have stripes because why not? It is my first stripy project of the year, and I love a good stripe, so I'm really excited for this one. I decided to cast on the Frost Lines cardigan by Andrea Mowry, and I'm just going to show you like this because I think it is better than if I put it on the mannequin. The one time I tried that, it didn't work. So we are trying like this. This is what I have so far. I finished the yoke. This is knit on a 5mm, so easy and quick project. I'm really enjoying it. And the yarn I chose for this project is another new to me yarn. And I'm knitting it out of the Rerum Natura. It's really hard for me to say this. The Rerum Natura Gilliatt in the colorway Granit. This lovely, where's the colorway name? Here. This lovely medium to dark gray. And I'm pairing it with two other colorways, a blushy pink and a maroon red wine color. This blushy pink colorway is called, I have the labels here because I only have these two balls that are already attached to my project. So this pink one is called, oh, I don't know how to pronounce this, but it means clay in French. So you can see here. And the maroon deep wine color is called Amarante. I don't know how to pronounce this. Sorry, I am absolutely terrible at French, but you have an idea of the colors. Now, talking about my project, this is a raglan construction with double knit button bands. I still haven't picked up stitches for the button band, so it looks kind of wonky right now. It has not been blocked. So this project needs a bit of love to look a little bit nicer, but I am really liking the look of it so far. I love knitting raglan constructions. They are really easy, really nice to keep track of where we're at in the pattern. And also this pattern includes kind of charts. It's more like a table to keep track of all the increases and everything that's going on while knitting the yoke. So it's really nice to just check the boxes as you finish a new row and see everything coming together. I really enjoy this chart style of increases instead of just plain text. It's much easier to keep track of your work. And this is the final look of the raglan. This is one sleeve and the back. I am really loving these three colorways together. This yarn is really bouncy. It is a worsted weight yarn, if I'm not mistaken. I am knitting it on a 5mm needle, but I am a pretty tight knitter. So I think I've went up a needle size when swatching. Now I don't remember the recommended needle size in the pattern, but I'm using a 5mm. And like I said, it is really bouncy, this yarn. I don't know if I can show you this, but maybe if I do it like this, I think you can kind of see how bouncy it is. And it is a joy to knit with this yarn. I've seen many people complimenting this yarn and singing its praises, and I completely understand why. The fabric it creates is really squishy and soft, and after blocking it looks like extra soft, and I think it's going to be lovely next to skin, a lovely addition to my spring and fall wardrobe, not only because of the colors. I think it's going to be really easy to pair with other layers and create a nice outfit, but also because of the fabric itself. I don't think it's too heavy to wear on a colder summer day and things like that. So I'm really excited to finish this in time for the final months of spring. But maybe I can show you up close just so you can see what it looks like. I have already joined in the round, but I just have a couple of centimeters under the arm, so there is still a good way to go before I'm ready to knit the hem. But this is also a quick project to knit on 5mm, just stockinette, well, knit flat, but anyway, it's just stockinette, adding a few stripes, single row stripes, and I'm really enjoying it. I think I said it many times now, but I'm really excited about this project. The only thing I noticed is that there isn't much stitch definition in this. My needle just poked my mug, but anyway, there isn't much stitch definition in this gray stripe, or at least not with the needle size I'm using and the way I knit. But I don't think it's going to be an issue for this project because it's stripe, just stockinette. I don't think I need much stitch definition anyway, so I'm fine with that. I haven't made any modifications to this pattern. I'm just following the instructions and having fun. But I think it is looking really nice. I want to pick up stitches for the button band so that I can have a better idea of the final fit and look of this project. And I'm really glad I went with this dark, I see this as a dark gray color because I always think that a lighter shade of gray, like in the pattern photos, washes me out. I don't know if that's true or not, but I always feel a little bit muted when I wear a light gray, so I always try to go with a darker shade instead. And I think I nailed exactly what I wanted with this shade. The only thing I am not 100% sold on right now is the depth of this v-neck, because right now I am worried it might be a bit shallow, but I don't think I can get a really nice idea of what's going on here until I add more fabric to the body so that this cardigan feels heavier and hangs on my body the way it's going to when it's finished. So right now I'm just following the pattern and I didn't change the v-neck depth, and I think it's going to be fine. If we look at the pattern photos, this v-neck is not in fact really deep. It's kind of shallow, but I think I like the final look of it. But to get a really precise idea, I need to add the button band, and by the time the button band is in, it will be too late to make any modifications. So yeah, I'm not that worried about it, but we'll see what happens. I think it's going to be fine, but who knows? So yeah, this is my Frost Lines cardigan so far. And now let me put it back in my project basket. And let's talk about my one and only acquisition, because I finally did it. I bought a new try-it-on tubing. Ta-da! I know it sounds silly, but if you guys have been here a while, you know all my issues with the try-it-on tubing that I had. I no longer have it. I already found a new home for that thing because it was terrible. I love the concept, but the execution was completely terrible. The tubing that I had, I got from Hobby a few years ago. I think it was like 4 or 5 years ago. And I don't think they even sell that same tubing anymore. It was a blue tubing, but it was also shiny on the outside. So it didn't grip my needles at all. And I do mean at all. I talked about this in my knitting regrets video, and you guys gave me a lot of ideas of new tubings to try out. And a couple of weeks ago, I got so annoyed while transferring stitches to a meat project block that I just finally gave up on it and bought a new tubing online. The one I ended up getting is this one, this spool, this giant spool of try-it-on tubing. I got this over on Amazon. This thing has 50 meters of try-it-on tubing, and I got the one with a 2mm diameter, and this thing is a dream. I was thinking about getting barber cords, like 2 tins of barber cords, but it is surprisingly hard to find around here where I live. I only found one website that carries barber cords, and the shipping would have been way too much. I'm talking like 30 euros just for 2 tins of barber cords, so I ended up getting this one on Amazon. I've seen people complaining about the smell of this tubing, and I get it. It really does have a bad smell, but I was prepared for that, so it wasn't really a surprise when I opened the package. And it was a sunny day outside when the package arrived, So I unraveled the entire thing and left it in the sun for a couple of hours. The smell was still there, so I sprayed some perfume. I chose a perfume that I really liked and I sprayed all over the tubing, and then I just put it back here, and now I can't smell anything but perfume, so it was a really nice touch. I am really happy with this tubing now. This thing grips my needle tips so nicely that I now found a new problem, that is detaching this thing from my needle tip. But this is a really nice problem to have. I'm not complaining at all. I can live with this problem until my very last breath. I won't ever complain about this thing. I am so happy. As soon as I used it for the first time, I wished I had bought it sooner. So yeah, that goes to say how good this thing is, or how terrible my last one was. I've already used a few meters of this thing because right now all my free whips have stitches on hold and never had a problem. This thing is, I think it's going to be my best acquisition of 2026. But enough about this tubing, and I guess that's it for today. Thank you so much for watching and spending some time with me. If you guys enjoyed today's episode of the podcast, don't forget to hit that subscribe button, give this video a like, and leave a comment down below. I always love chatting with you guys and hearing your opinions. And I think that's it. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next week with a fresh new video. And until then, happy knitting. Bye!